If I'm making an app for a developed country, it's basic factors like typographic density or information density or the color vibrancy or the color combinations. India has to find a sweet spot for all of these kind of users.
What role does design play when it comes to making a successful product?
Is Apple innovating enough today or not? But one thing they definitely do is that let the insurgents take the space first. But when I come in, I will do it at a quality level which is much higher than everybody else.
We have tons of scaled up startups in India now, but still we do not have anything in the league of Apple or Airbnb when it comes to design.
I would slightly disagree to this.
Do we really need PMs in the industry anymore?
Today, we are joined by one of India's most respected design and product leaders, someone who has shaped how India shops, learns and manages their health online. Shayak Sen, currently the head of design at Myntra and part of its core leadership team. Over the past 15 plus years, Shayak has led design at companies like Miso, Vedantu and Practo, building design teams, systems and experiences at massive scale. He also mentors emerging designers, teaches as visiting faculty, and speaks at top conferences across the country. Please join me in welcoming Shayak Sen.
So Shayak, we have tons of startups in India and we have tons of scaled up startups in India now, but still we do not have anything in the league of Apple or Airbnb when it comes to design. Why do you think so?
I would slightly disagree to this. I feel that when you talk about craft, we do have companies which excel in design craft in India also, but the nuances are very different. And that's what I think is very critical to understand. So yeah, India also has apps like, I will first always talk about Myntra, and then Zomato, Swiggy, Cred. So all of these have created really great apps, and I would say the nuances are very different because I think we were discussing, right? India is not a very homogeneous user group. Even if you take GDP per capita GDP, it's a very varying degree of range that you see, and the design sensibilities of these are very different. So if I'm making an app for a developed country, it's going to have a very different and take some of the very basic factors like typographic density or information density or the color vibrancy or the color combinations. The way it works for an affluent class is very different from a tier 2, tier 3 mid affluent user group. India has to find a sweet spot for all of these kind of users. If you're making for a very niche product, then you can build that and you can build a very different, a very specific design language for that.
But would you consider something like a Airbnb a product that is built for a niche audience, because it's a global product and all over the world, irrespective of the country or the city, people absolutely love the design. Every time we talk about some of the best design products, people look up to something like Airbnb. But I do not know if we have something like that in India. Like there are many good, well-designed products, but nothing stands out like something like this.
So you take Airbnb's adoption in India versus MakeMyTrip's adoption in India, and I'm sure that MakeMyTrip is much way beyond that right now. And the thing is, come closer to home, you have Airtribe, which used to have a very neat design and very it was very well designed
compared to MakeMyTrip.
Compared to MakeMyTrip when it started early back, it was dense. It's the value proposition is more important. And once you get that right, you have to adapt your design to that. So MakeMyTrip will have a lot of offers, deals, lot more density. It's true that our tier 2 mid-affluent user group likes a bazaar-like experience, and this is not only true for India, it is also for the entire Southeast Asian countries. You go to a Chinese app, it's much more dense, it's much more vibrant than an Airbnb. The point is that there's no other solution like Airbnb right now And probably, and that's also true for something like YouTube or Instagram, because yes, our even the tier 2 and the the bottommost user group will also be using YouTube or Instagram, but that's because there is no alternative to this platform, right? And and even if you go there, Instagram, except for the content space, everything is very dense.
Yeah.
So you have to cater to these understandings, and only then you can build a product that also works. And you are building for a specific. And see, that's the reason why many companies, and I'm sure you would have been, part of that journey where many of these Indian startups also decided to go, and open and have a version for international audience also. And somewhere it became a little tricky because the same language and same design sensibility does not work for something, and they came back. It's also obviously business and logistics and everything also, it's an important piece.
Can you give me an example of this?
So, for example, Zomato, Urban Company, all of them has, Urban Company went to Australia, Zomato opened in Brazil, and you can do that, but every local geography has very different design sensibilities. Gojek has been able to do that, much better because they were all across different geographies and they have done it well.
Mostly Southeast Asia only, right?
Yeah,
For
yeah.
Gojek.
Southeast Asia and a little bit to developing nations. So again, if you look at this, the target was that our sensibilities in terms of what we value, not only in terms of business and financially, like we are deal seekers, we are price sensitive and all of that, plus also the design sensibilities. That's the reason why these companies were primarily going to for same developing nation scenarios, right? Okay, Brazil, South America, Southeast Asian countries. So yeah, I think these are very serious consideration that you have to take when you are making those choices. So that way I would say that our craft is much higher because we are dealing with these complexities. Okay, we are taught in our design schools to make things simpler, easier, and I would say that is easier. Okay, and if you throw those problems to some of the good designers and best designers here, they can do 10x what they can do right now. But our complexities are much more higher there, and hence I think we are and salute to all the people who have built those great apps, in Indian apps, that they have done a great job in trying to marry all of these requirements of Indian users and then bringing them down to a level where it doesn't alienate any kind of user group.
So based on your experience, what role does design play when it comes to making a successful product?
Now in a much more established setups, right, and on a large organization, I think design is a right to trust. Okay, because if you are of a level, because design comes before, after your bread and butter is taken care of, and which means that if your business is all your value proposition and all your product market fit and everything is done, and then you are able to invest in design and also give a great experience. That is a huge, a plus point. And if you look at how some of the larger incumbent companies are approaching this, for example, Apple. Now, we all argue these days that is Apple innovating enough today or not? And that's up for debate, definitely. But one thing they definitely do is that the reason they are able to maintain their position is because even if I coming on board with a new experiment or something that is already existing in the industry, let the insurgents take the space first. But when I come in, I will do it at a quality level which is much higher than everybody else, right? So, so you set the standard by saying that, and that gives trust to the user that this company is much beyond just utility, and that's where the business lies. I think this is what I think, right to the right audience. Design allows you to have that.
Any example from Apple that illustrates this point?
Example for?
Like you said, Apple is usually late to the market, but they crack the user experience before they enter the market. Any recent example that you can take?
So, specifically for incumbent companies, I think like for example, Apple's Liquid Glass. Now, people are citing examples of, okay, Microsoft had a version where it had a frosted background, versus there are other where you have a blurry background and all
Yeah.
of that. But this is maybe beyond that. Okay, first of all, this has a lot of foresight into how it will probably merge into a AR VR kind of a scenario. At the same time, the physics of it, the way they have built it, and see in Apple, for example, when iPhone launched first time, multi-touch was already there.
Yeah.
Okay, touch was already there. They waited for till the time when capacitive touch became totally accessible and usable. Before that, I think I was using a phone, touch phone on Samsung, which was resistive touch with a stylus.
Yeah.
And that experience was glitchy, and it wasn't a great experience. But then Apple waited for those things to come together, and then the experience that they built was 10 times what you could see around you, though you had all the technologies around you. So I think that's what great companies do. That does not take away the fact that you have to still make a great product, but you build that experience on top of it.
In the last couple of years, we have seen an implosion of new AI products.
Right.
Any particular product that you can think of which differentiated itself from the crowded market with good design?
No, yeah, I think, and that's a totally different thread of conversation, because I believe that where we are today sitting and in the wake of AI products, the entire ecosystem and the theories of design that we had in the past has to change. Okay. And this is the good part of it, because now you can redefine few of the systems. And to be frank, in a conversational flow, how a storefront will work, how how filtering will work, and how, because it's for every user, you cannot be constantly conversing. You also have to have UI element, interface elements. How this will exactly marry, I think everybody is exploring that, and that is what the whole holy grail is, where there can be different solutions. I have some concepts in my mind that I think this might work, this might happen. Recently, I was seeing somebody has done where you are typing, the suggestive pieces are coming in a micro animated way just close to it, so you can select those, and those are fairly a different kind of interfaces. So these are the things which will get built. What I also feel is that, and so the components that will now fit into these flows will have to be very self-contained. Like in the design system that we now design, you design it based on a absolute deterministic environment, that okay, you have a screen, there's many pixels and all of that. Now you will need to build components which are self-contained with a kind of a design system genome inside it, so that you give the environment and it self-adapts to that, because you don't know what environment it will require, and you cannot predict all the environments. So you need some basic rules within that component which will self-generate it in a given situation. So if you are in a large place where the text is coming and it has to come before that, then it takes a different shape. When it goes into a screen, it takes a different shape. When it goes somewhere, it takes a different shape. It basically responds to the overall environment. Okay, so I see the design system evolving to kind of allow for very generative and mutative design components, and that's a very interesting, exciting space, I feel. So there's a lot to be happening around. I think let's see how it goes.
Any particular product that you think has cracked it?
No, I don't. No, so that's where I think nobody has cracked it, because we are still dealing with the tech of it, the tech part, and the design is also evolving along with it. I wouldn't say that I have seen something which gives me that wow, this is completely bending it head over heels to kind of come up with something very different. Everything is right now going linear, but I'm sure that there's something which will come which will completely change the way the narrative works. So I don't have anything in my mind right now. There are examples. So Cursor is something that I've used. I love it because the way it works. Notion, the way it has integrated it, and because the components are already there, so it started generating. So there are when you talk about NA10, the way that the visualization of how it works, Zapier was there already, but this is very interesting, where you see every action being taking place, and those visualizations are, I think, very, very important. I'm seeing a lot of good things happening around this, but in a day-to-day activity for for a very mass adoption, what kind of language, what apps did for us in a mobile, what will it mean for AI to be that level of adoption, and what language and what design will it? I think that is still evolving.
Why should somebody build a career in design? And how do your answer change in 2025 versus, let's say, 2015?
So let's go to 2005. 2005 mein UX design or product design did not exist. I mean, like in India, nobody knew. Maybe 0.001% people knew about कि ऐसा कुछ होता भी होगा.
Okay.
And it was there. Even in, let's say, US mein, there is probably SCI, CMU mein course was there, Georgia Tech, and a couple of other
Human-computer
interaction and all that.
Yeah.
Now, imagine, and I'm talking about 2005 because 2006 is when I joined IDC. मैं जब IDC में when I went there for interviewing and finally I was selected, and so my professors, that year 2006 is when the first interaction design course started in India.
Really?
हाँ, I think in whole of India, in IDC में that was the first year. I think IDC first started it, if I'm not wrong. I don't recall कि NID में था कि नहीं. But this is what happened. So I went there and I was giving my interview, and I will flex a bit. I was third rank, so I was opening the interview. So
IDC is the design
in
college
IT Bombay.
of IT Bombay, right? Okay.
So all the three professors, they said, ki, dude, you are coming from a engineering background, so do you want to consider? And I was applying for VC, visual communication,
Okay.
because मुझे movies बनानी थी. I wanted to make movies.
Nice.
And later professor ने बोला ये movie school नहीं है, design school है, ठीक है. You don't get to
Excited.
कि movie बनाने आ रहा हूँ. But anyway, I was telling कि I want to do VC, and they were telling me, do you want to consider joining interaction design? And I said no, because I did not have any idea about interaction design. But why I'm bringing this up is because there were 12 people who joined interaction design. Why did they join interaction design at that point of time when nobody around you knew anything about interaction design? Hardly anybody knew about it. I was wanted to do visual communication because design would mean either advertising, movie making, or book making, or graphic design or something like that. Because these people have researched on things, what is going on in US. There were people who were coming from architecture background, art background, but engineering background, but they were following what is going on across. In fact, they were following Anirudh Joshi's work. And I had no idea about that. And they were taking a bet on this, even though during that time, interaction and UX was not considered very glamorous. And it was very restrictive for a designer. इसमें ज़्यादा कुछ कर ही नहीं सकता मैं. But they took that bet. And 2007, iPhone launched. And with app experience and the entire app ecosystem, the entire design industry kind of boomed up, right?
Okay.
Now, see, I was fortunate. मैं तो lucky था. I will be very honest. I was totally lucky because I went there to do VC, but because I was in proximity of this whole thing that was happening, I got exposed to it, and I started a company in UX design right out of my college. The reason I'm talking about this is that I think in 2025 we are going back to some of those scenarios. Now, if you are looking at around you what is happening, कि ठीक है UX में you are making screens, you are doing this, you are making a product card, you are making a component, you are living in the past. Because with AI, things and what is going to happen in the future is going to completely change the way you experience design. So for some of the folks, I would say this is the best time to do that deep research and understand and take a bet on something. कि design क्या change कर देगा आपकी life में, and go all in on that, because if you hit the jackpot, the upside is huge, right?
In my experience, what I have seen some people do is tactically the kind of content that you consume, the kind of experiences you participate in, it actually helps you improve taste. So let's say going to a museum, not something that many people in India are into, to be honest. But when I was in the West, it's part of routine life. Let's go to this museum. Let's go to that museum, and that really helps because some of these places are very well designed. They have proper proportions of even the windows and the gates and all those artifacts inside the museum. Second thing that I have observed is the kind of content that you are consuming.
Yeah.
Like if somebody watches, let's say, a Nolan's movie or a Denis Villeneuve's movie versus some typical director from, let's say, Bollywood or even Hollywood for that matter, you end up building very different taste for, okay, what great cinematography looks like versus what a mediocre cinematography looks like.
Yeah.
And that also helps you build taste.
But I will add another angle to it, another perspective to it. So, for example, and in fact, this was the exact conversation I was having with I don't remember the name, but he was giving a talk at Flipkart's event. He was talking about taste, and my point was that what are the lead indicators of taste are okay, because see the one kind of taste is that like you said, you consume the content, and then let's say you somebody who you watch a lot of good movies. So for example, let's say maybe it's a little controversial, but let's say Karan Johar. Now because he's raised and born in an environment where his parents were making movies, or his family was making movies, and he saw thousands of different movies, so he built a taste for movies, let's say. And if you reach a certain stage and you can basically expose yourself to opening up, but is that is acquired taste which you have worked upon to get kind of acquire.
Yeah.
The other part of the taste is, and that is also very important when you have to look at execution and doing business in the industry. But the other part of the taste is that whether you can identify taste when it is not a taste yet. Okay. And one of the best example is what you might follow Shreyas Doshi, right? And I think I love his commentary on product and everything. And one of the best example that he gives is that imagine that there is a conference going on in 2012 and 2024, and in both the cases there are two talks going at the same time. In one it's Mark Pincus of Zynga, and the other is Jensen Huang
from NVIDIA. In 2012, where do you think the PMs, if all the PMs are there, which talk they will attend? In 2012, Zynga was the poster child, hero. Okay, everywhere it was Zynga. Good
Zynga,
design, good product, the
good
best
product,
designers and PMs work there.
Adoption huge, and kind of, I think maybe the stock market is kind of going up. Everybody would go to Mark Pincus's talk, and very few probably to Jensen Huang. It's not that Jensen Huang was not smart guy, and he was what he was envisaging and talking, it made a lot of sense. Cut to 2024, it will be the other way around, right? Okay. For those people who went to Jensen Huang's talk, what did it take? Because unless and until you are deep into understanding how the market is working, where the technology is going, you will not have that depth to understand this is the future. Okay, and I should go and listen to what this guy is saying.
Yeah.
And his point was that imagine what alpha you would get if you were into that mindset to kind of be there.
Most of our audience is somebody who wants to build a career in product or design or engineering. Basically, they all want to be product builders, even more so now with Gen AI. I think they would want to know from you, what is it common across the best designers and PMs that you have worked with in your career?
I think the most important thing is that your ability to do first principle thinking.
What is first principles thinking?
First principle thinking is that you break down to your basic components and you start from the bottoms up, right? Okay.
Any example?
Very good example would be the COD. Okay.
Cash on delivery.
Cash on delivery. I think it's a big innovation that came out of India. But you think about this, that across the world, e-commerce was thriving on digital payments, right? And India also, initially you had to make a credit card payment, but the credit card adoption was very low in India.
Yes.
Now, what would be the linear brute force method of doing this is that let's try to sell more credit card and let's tie up with banks and ask them to give more credit cards. it's a long run process. I don't know
Yeah.
how it will solve it. And so that you go back to the first principle that, okay, what is the problem? Then, people don't have credit card. Can I work it from the bottoms up? And then you said, okay, TK, can I do a cash on delivery? And that then you come across this kind of an innovation, right? So I think that is what helps you to solve some problems in a very, completely look at a problem in a very different way. So to be frank, in most of the things that we do, 80% of the work will be probably very simple, straightforward, linear.
Yeah.
Okay. 20% is where you do that. In fact, just I will add to this. It's very interesting. So I say, and somebody was asking me that what kind of a design team would you like? I said there's obviously no fixed pattern of having a design team, but let's say you have 20 designers.
Yeah.
You would want 80% of them to be very analytical and critical thinking and very linear in their work of, because that is how you can execute day-to-day work in a really predictable manner.
Yeah.
And that works. Okay, that is like your BAU. But I would really like to have 20% of my designers who have a very abstract way of thinking, who turns the problem around its head and thinks first principle and come up with very unique idea, right?
More of disruptors.
More of disruptors.
So
yes.
80% who do incremental work because you have to keep the ship moving.
Right.
The 20% are disruptors who come up with
Yeah.
interesting new 0 to 1 ideas that can move the needle. Designer, in my view, can not only see the problem but also frame the problem, write the spec, and go about building the prototype.
Right.
What's the need for PMs then? Do we really need PMs in the industry anymore? What's your point of view?
No, I think, see, I mean, if somebody can actually read the data that well and do the analysis to the level that a PM is doing, then of course you are right, then you don't need a PM. Okay, and you can create the problem statements and everything, that's fine.
So do you think PM's actual value addition is only analytics?
Yes, I think there is a huge value that they bring by, and the depth of analysis is something that I wouldn't see, a normal or average designer would, kind of bring.
Why do designers struggle with that?
See, I mean, this is a lot of quant part to it, right? And I think it is a left brain, right brain scenario that is going on here. Designers are primarily right brain, and then and it's not easy to switch from this to that, and the strengths are very different. There are few, of course, who are like polymaths, and they have kind of both the capabilities. There's I remember that Cleartrip, Rouge Bhatt, who was the product head, he was a product manager with a arts background or a design background. He studied design, and there were only very few of them. Okay, and then on the design side also, yes, definitely you can go to some level of rigorous analytics and everything, but to completely transition from there to there, it's not easy. In fact, I can share another, and I'm not saying this is true for everybody. It is always there are unicorns who can do everything together, but for general average, I'm saying that this is true. Even for example, something like when we used to design wireframe and visual design.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're trying to solve the problem, and some of us are like, I always used to start with visual itself. Now, just a transition from a utilitarian wireframe to visual or visual to wireframe needs a mental shift sometimes. You have to, and if you start doing this together, you get completely messed up. So there is a little bit of chamberization that happens. And I think that is where I'm saying that the depth at which you have to do the analysis probably needs to be much higher to be able to replace a PM.
Okay. I was asking this because I came through this tweet by the founder of Cursor, where they talked about their most recent fundraise, and just 2 years in, $1 billion in revenue, and they have no PMs in the team. It's mostly managed by the designers and engineers. So to your argument that designers will need the analytical half, to complement them. So I was wondering, maybe that can be done by engineers. If engineers and designers are able to take care of it, then
Yes.
do we really need PM? And if we do, at what stage do we need PMs? Maybe for early products, not so much, but once the product matures, maybe we need, I don't know.
No, yes, it's a very valid point that, and if you look at even the history of product management, it's basically a combination of all of this. We use putting them together. For example, product marketing, product this, and bringing them all together. But you are right. A large part of the analytics could also be handled by engineering, and if the designer is taking care of that, how to translate that into a business problem, you can actually marry that and happen. In fact, I think historically the early product managers were engineers who had a little bit of business sense. Then they started, they were coached to become product managers. That's how it started, I think, Amazon and in the early days.
Somebody who commits to building a career in design, they stay in it for 10 years or above, roughly 10 years. How much can they make yearly?
So I mean, you go for if you have spent 10 years in the industry, I am assuming that you will reach to a level of either a senior manager or a director, or depending upon the kind of companies. Okay, senior manager. And see, this range, by the way, right now in the industry, that range is very varied. Okay, it could be somewhere from yearly 50 lakh to 1 year.
Okay.
Right now, depending upon which company you're working at.
It can go up to 1 CR.
1 CR, yeah.
It was great talking to you, Shayak, today. Learned a lot about design, careers. Thanks a lot for coming, and hope to see you again.